that the FBI opened an investigation into the president's campaign with political motives. Today, we just got a report from the Department of Justice Inspector General that puts these conspiracy theories to rest once and for all. This report conclusively debunks the baseless conspiracy that the investigation into Mr. Trump's campaign and its ties to Russia originated with political bias. Let me repeat so that all of those conspiracy theorists out there hear it. This report confirms that the predicate for the FBI's investigation was valid and without political bias. In fact, the report quotes the FBI Deputy General Counsel as saying, quote, "The FBI would have been derelict in our responsibility had we not opened the case." I'm sure my Republican friends will do their level best to reject the report's conclusion. But FBI Director Wray, appointed by President Trump, has already embraced the central finding of the report. Asked whether he thought the FBI unfairly targeted the Trump campaign, Director Wray said, "I do not." I'm sure some of my Republican friends will, given their MO, I'm sure some of my Republican friends will question the integrity of the report's author, Inspector General Horowitz. But it's ironic that the very same people who question the IG report today, like Attorney General Barr, Chairman Graham, have praised the Inspector General in the past. AG Barr said last week, Horowitz is, quote, "a fiercely independent and superb investigator." Then Attorney General Barr ought to accept this fiercely independent and superb investigator's conclusions. Chairman Graham earlier this year wrote that, quote, "he has the utmost confidence in his integrity, fairness, and impartiality." Senator Graham ought not, because the IG issued a report whose conclusions he doesn't like, ought to not question what he upheld last week, the integrity, fairness, and impartiality of Inspector General Horowitz. The bottom line is clear. The IG report, written by someone who Republicans repeatedly praised, embraced by the Trump-appointed FBI director, shows there is no bias for the president's absurd claim that the investigation into his campaign was a hoax or a conspiracy against him. Now, this report comes at an important time. Republicans on both sides of the Capitol have engaged in a new defense of the president, this time developed by Vladimir Putin, that Ukraine, not Putin, interfered in the 2016 elections. It doesn't matter that it's been debunked over and over again by independent fact-checkers in the media, by the Mueller report, by testimony under oath, including by senior officials currently serving in the Trump administration, and again by the IG report today. The president's defenders have repeated this conspiracy anyway, including, shamefully, several of my colleagues in the Senate. In an effort to protect the president at all costs, the grand old party in the Senate has become the conspiracy caucus. One conspiracy theory after another, none of them with basis in fact. It's no laughing matter. These conspiracies are not harmless. They are sinister, they are insidious, they damage our democracy. The president has spent 3 years undermining the credibility and faith in our law enforcement and in our intelligence community. And he has forced the DOJ to use resources on those conspiracies. Instead of fighting the opioid epidemic, countering Chinese intellectual property theft and cyber operations, or countering Russian aggression, the DOJ, at the behest of Attorney General Barr, was sent on this wild goose chase. When Republicans in the Senate repeat the falsehood invented by Putin's intelligence services that Ukraine interfered in the 2016 elections, it helps deflect blame from Putin and drives a wedge between the United States and Ukraine, one of Putin's top goals. The fact that Senate Republicans are willing to put wild wind into the sails of these baseless conspiracy theories is beyond alarming. It hurts our country. It hurts our country. The IG report today, which roundly debunks one of the president's wild theories, should serve as a wake-up call to the Republican members of the Conspiracy Caucus. Questions on this subject?
Senator, what about the other central finding of the report that the FBI engaged in at least 17 instances where they didn't provide complete information or they misled the court in some respects? I mean, this wasn't a clean bill of health for the FBI.
No, but it was a clean bill of health in debunking the conspiracy theory that the investigation into Trump's activities with Russia was politically motivated. That is the main finding of the report, and that is what I am addressing.
Are you covering that?
Yes.
Can you talk about, are you concerned that Durham is continuing to investigate? He clearly disagrees so far with that statement today, as well as the
Yeah.
Attorney General.
You know, when Attorney General Barr picked Durham, I was skeptical because Attorney General Barr has proven to be a mouthpiece for President Trump and his wrongdoing, not a enforced rule of law Attorney General. And Durham's statement today confirms it. If Durham were so non-political, he never would have issued that statement.
Is there any legislation that you would consider based on the report today?
Not at the moment. Okay,
Can I ask you about impeachment and just
one question.
the hearings obviously happening today? They seem to be going very quickly. They could vote as soon as next week. Have you started any conversations with Majority Leader McConnell on how a trial will look, and when do you expect that to start?
Well, I think it's premature to do that until we see what the House actually produces. Thank you, everybody.
Yeah, that's a scoop. Everybody must credit that.
Credit to you.
Are we set for Senator Graham? Senator Graham next.
the Attorney General Barr, and Mr. Horowitz. You have three different views. Well, I guess two of the views are that there was no lawful predicate to begin the investigation. I think Mr. Durham says he had more information than Mr. Horowitz. But that's not my concern right now. Three lawyers can reasonably disagree, and I trust Mr. Horowitz to give an honest view. And let's assume for a moment there was a lawful predicate. The bar is really low to open up a counterintelligence investigation. A reasonable articulation is a pretty low standard in the law. The point I want to make is, let's assume for a moment it started out okay. It sure as hell didn't end okay. What I see in this report, and nobody's reported yet, I hope some of you will look, is that while there may be reasonable differences about whether or not there was a lawful predicate, I believe there will be no debate among reasonable-minded people, particularly lawyers, about how the system not only got off the rails, but in my view became a criminal enterprise to defraud the FISA court, to deny American citizen Carter Page his constitutional rights, and to continue an operation against President Trump as President of the United States that I think was fundamentally flawed and unlawful. These are statements I don't make lightly, and these are statements based on the findings of the report. Unfortunately, at the Department of Justice and the FBI, there was a period of time when they went back to the good old days of J. Edgar Hoover, where they made stuff up. They misled people. So on page 186, it talks about the FBI identifying and interviewing the primary subsource for the Steele dossier. What I want you to understand is that Christopher Steele had a primary subsource, and this person had other people reporting to him, and that formed the basis of the dossier. What did the FBI find in January of 2017? That once they identified the subsource and actually interviewed the subsource says, the primary subsource told the FBI that he/she had not seen Steele's report until they became public that month, and that he/she made statements indicating that Steele misstated or exaggerated the primary subsource statements in multiple sections of the reporting. The primary subsource told the FBI that basically this was rumor and speculation, hearsay, bar talk, and he never believed that Steele would use the information provided in any official document. That should have been a red light for the Department of Justice and the FBI. Ladies and gentlemen, in January 2015 and thereafter, the primary subsource of the Steele dossier is telling the FBI and the Department of Justice that the Russian dossier is not reliable, that it was never meant to be used as an official document. It's all hearsay, rumor, bar talk, and he specifically talks about the episode involving President Trump and sexual activity inside of Russia, and says that was all rumor and speculation, word of mouth, and hearsay. So what should have happened? Once the FBI and the Department of Justice was told by the primary subsource that the information in the dossier is not reliable, they had a duty, in my view, to report to the FISA court exculpatory information. Not only did they not tell the court that the subsource trashed out their document, this is what they told the court on page 190. Carter Page's renewal applications number 2 and 3 advised the court that following the January interview with the primary subsource, the FBI found the Russian-based subsource to be truthful and cooperative. That's a lie. The subsource said exactly the opposite. So not only did they continue to get a warrant against Mr. Page after being told by the primary source of the document that it's all garbage, hearsay, bar talk, not reliable, they got 2 more warrants using that document, and they described to the court the interview in January found that the Russian-based subsource to be truthful and cooperative. I don't know who told the court that. I don't know who was in the meeting in January, February, but I want to find out who these people are, and they need to be held accountable. Because what they did from that point on, this whole endeavor became a criminal conspiracy to defraud the court, to trample on the rights of an American citizen, Mr. Carter Page, and to continue an operation against the President of the United States that I think was unwarranted. I cannot stress enough that all of us rely upon those with the power to follow us, surveil us, and to check on us to be honest and truthful. Nobody has mentioned a word about this yet. That on page 186 to 190 in the Horowitz report, it describes in great detail how the FBI found out that the subsource for the Steele dossier disavowed it. And they used it 2 more times to get warrants. They never told the court, and they actually lied to the court about the interview. If that doesn't bother you, you hate Trump way too much. That should bother every American. And it gets worse. In June of 2017, one of the lawyers in the FBI who's supposed to review warrants, Kleinsmith, is told by the CIA that Carter Page is a source. What does he tell the FISA court? That he is not a source. He took the information supplied to him by the FBI and doctored an email so the court would not be aware of the fact that Carter Page was a source for the CIA. Why is that important? In building a case against Carter Page, they used the dossier. They tried to get a warrant in August and they couldn't. Somebody thought of the great idea of beginning to use the dossier to get a warrant, and it apparently worked. But here's the problem. 3 people named in the dossier as having talked to Carter Page, believed to be foreign agents. Carter Page, while being wired unknown to him, said, I don't know these 2 people. And to this day, there's no proof that he met the 2 people he denies meeting. And that was one of the reasons they classified him as a foreign agent. The third contact was with a person known to be a foreign agent, and he told the CIA about the contact because he was their source. Why is it important that they lied to the court? If the court had known that he had a reason to be talking to this person, it would have been completely different. That's why Mr. Kleinsmith lied, because if that fact ever got confirmed, it would change the entire predicate they set up to the court as to whether or not Carter Page was a foreign agent. You cannot surveil somebody unless you have proof they're a foreign agent. So Wednesday, we're going to have a hearing, and we're going to get the good, the bad, and the ugly. We're going to try to find a way to make sure this never happens again. And here's what I hope people in your business will do. Read the entire report, not focus on the debate as to whether or not there was a legal predicate. I'm here to tell you that doesn't drive my thinking. I will assume, for the sake of argument, there was a legal foundation. But what I will not tolerate is how it got off the rails and how the FBI and the Department of Justice, to continue this investigation, continually lied to the court, misled the court, manufactured evidence to hurt an American citizen and to continue an operation against the President of the United States. That should bother all of us. What is this akin to? I've been a prosecutor, I've been a defense attorney, I've been a judge. To me, this would be like getting a lab report saying that the person you're investigating, the fingerprints don't match, the DNA doesn't match, but instead of telling the court that, you say that it does. It was that obvious. The subsource, the person who prepared all the information for the dossier, told the FBI in January 2017, this is a bunch of garbage. Not only did they not stop using the garbage, they lied to the court about what the man said. Somebody needs to be held accountable for that, because the people who knew about that scenario, the people who knew that the subsource had disavowed the reliability of the dossier, should be held liable for being involved in a criminal conspiracy to defraud the FISA court. I don't know who knew, but we need to find that out. I hope Mr. Durham is looking at it. If I were Mr. Carter Page, I'd hire me a lawyer. And I'd sue the hell out of the United States. This is a sad day. This is a dangerous set of circumstances, but there are better days ahead. Mr. Horowitz has identified the problem. It is up to us to fix it. I look forward to working with Democrats to make sure this never happens again, that we have rules around counterintelligence investigations, that we beef up the FISA court. I'm a pretty hawkish guy, but I'm dumbfounded and really upset about how this whole process was handled. Being a hawkish guy doesn't mean you don't care about the rules. The thing that protects us from being like our enemies is that we have rules, even for Trump, even for people we don't like. It's Trump today, it could be somebody else tomorrow. The goal here is to make sure it never happens again. And one of the ways to make sure it never happens again is that those who took the law in their own hands need to pay a price.
Senator, another one of the key findings, aside from the fact that you said it was one of the cases that there was bias, can I get your response to that?
Yeah, you know, I don't, you know, when you get shot, I don't know why somebody, you know, motive. I don't know what other reason they would have to lie to the court on 2 different occasions. Why would you keep the investigation going when you had every reason to believe it was no longer legitimate? What were they thinking when the subsource told them, all this stuff, none of it's accurate, it's all hearsay and bar talk and speculation. None of it is reliable. What would make people continue to want to get a warrant? You'll have to talk to them, but I'm not going to accept that politics is not part of it, given what we know about the people in charge. We know that Strzok and Page hated Trump's guts. But it doesn't matter to me why they did it as much as the fact they did it. And I don't know how anybody can conclude there was no political bias here, given what these people say. Mr. Klein-Smith's email, he says, "Viva la resistance." So the man at the department, at the FBI, who lied to the court about Carter Page's association with the CIA, is known to say, "Viva la resistance." You can have your political opinions all day long, you just can't act on them. And here's what I would say. There was 1 million stop signs. There were numerous stop signs that were run. They seemed to want to get an outcome. Why did they want it so badly? What drove them so much to lie and to turn the process upside down? I don't think it's much of a stretch to say that their biases did come into play, but that's not important to me as much as making sure we know what happened and it never happens again.
Do you then plan on trying to press Horowitz at the hearing on Wednesday?
So-
Because he came to this conclusion, you apparently just don't agree.
Yeah, but it doesn't matter where I agree. I don't know why they didn't tell the court about the subsource's statement in January. Any normal system would have stopped. When you're told that the person who helped prepare the document will not verify it, disavows it, then I think all of us would say you need to slow down and figure out what's going on here. Not only did they not slow down, they falsified the results of the interview to the court to make it look like he actually was truthful when they know he wasn't. So I don't know what made him do this, and I don't want to get into speculating. I'm just saying the facts are clear, the motives maybe not, but it's not much of a stretch to me to think that these people, when it came to Trump, were out to get him, but that doesn't matter to me.
Senator, you looked at the dossier with John McCain. You recommended that you take it to the FBI.
This is really a good question.
To have the FBI look at it.
Yeah.
So it's sounds like you're okay with the fact that they did investigate.
I'm perfectly okay with counterintelligence investigations of any of us. Like Dianne Feinstein, she had an employee that worked there for years, and they found out that he was associated with the Chinese intelligence service. That could happen to anybody in this building on campaigns. Carter Page and Papadopoulos, let's put it this way, they were not senior leaders of the campaign. I don't know if Trump knew either one of them. They were volunteers. I could see where somebody volunteering for my campaign, vouched for by somebody I don't know, this could happen to all of us. So my beef is not that they looked. My beef is that they lied, that they didn't tell the court what they found, that they ran the stop signs. So when I got the dossier, I remember it very well. I can't remember the dates, but John McCain went to the Halifax Security Conference, and somebody told him about this explosive document. And John said, okay, yeah, send it to me. I think somebody, I can't remember who went over to England. Who was it? Somebody went over to England on behalf of Senator McCain. They got the dossier, and they brought it back. John showed it to me. And let me tell you, when I read it, I said, I can't say what I said. It was scary. I thought they had compromised President Trump. I mean, if you read this document, it is chilling. And I told John, we live in a weird world. I don't know if this is misinformation by Russia. I don't know if Trump did all this stuff, but I know that you and I can't determine it. And John took it over to Comey at the FBI. He locked it in his safe that night. And I can tell you, having looked at it, it was unnerving. Here's what I would say. If by then, no. If by December 2017, you had numerous reports that Steele was out to get Trump, that things weren't on the up and up, that you use it without verifying it. I don't fault anybody for looking into allegations like this. I do fault them for lying and misrepresenting to the court. And just put yourself in Carter Page's position. Whatever you think about Carter Page, I don't think he's James Bond. You know, they put this guy through hell. And there are other people that's probably spent thousands of dollars on legal fees, I think, at a time when the investigation should have stopped. Thank you all very much. See you Wednesday.